Good morning, everyone. I'm Megan Cullop, along here with Scott Michlin.
Good morning, Megan Cullop. We're back. Week number 2.
I know.
Are we going to keep track of these weeks, too?
I don't know. I don't know if it's as important to keep track of these as it was for COVID.
The pandemic.
Yeah.
I may be right. But anyway, we're back with our new program, Solutions from the Street.
That's right.
Week number 2.
Week number 2, Solutions-Focused Journalism.
Still haven't fixed that title slide. It still has your name first. I don't understand that.
You're the one with the connections.
I sent it back to graphic design with a rewrite. I said, change that, and nothing. Nothing.
No response.
14 days. Nothing.
They said we do things alphabetical, I'm sure.
Maybe that's it. I'm sure that's what it is. Anyway, good to see you. Welcome back. You've had a good week.
Yeah, we've rounded out Connie Mack.
We did. You had a lot of work with that. I don't know if everyone knows that you were behind a lot of the social media posts of during Connie Mack for KSJE. So thank you for your work during that week. There were some pretty long days.
It was fun. Once a year. It was fun for once a year.
There you go. Understood.
Yeah.
So you can get ready. 51 more weeks.
Yeah.
And then you'll be ready to go again.
Countdown's on.
Yeah, exactly. So here we are, Solutions from the Street. And so we've got a great solution this week and dealing with a really important problem that you're going to set up for us.
Sure. Yeah. So, we are made up of mind, body, and spirit, right? That's the way that we...
Most of us, right?
I am. Are you?
Okay. I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm working on it.
And yes. And so, in my other line of work, that's certainly something that we press and taking care of the whole individual. And throughout our lives, we accumulate pains and we carry burdens. And so part of living is dealing with that pain and those burdens and healing from various things that befall us, just being a human.
Right.
On this planet. And so that's a really important problem, and it might be a little more abstract than we generally do on this program. Last week was solar panels. That's
pretty concrete.
Yeah, it's pretty concrete.
Yeah.
So that's our problem, and we have some super talented local folks who have worked a long time to put together a program that will help sort of generate that healing spirit in us. And so we're going to hear these guys share a bit more about that. But I think the problem is just healing our whole self.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true. Well, let's bring them onto the conversation, right?
Great.
Because they have a special concert this weekend on Sunday, which is, again, the reason why we brought them into the show. But
yes.
There you go. Nicholas Lucero is here from the Delbert Anderson Trio. Good morning, and thank you for coming in.
Hi, Scott. Good to see you. Good to see you, Megan, and meet you. Yeah.
Good to have you.
Excited to be here.
Good to have you here. And the poet and hip-hop singer who's part of this concert as well is here with us this morning, and welcome to you.
Good morning.
James Pacutis, good morning to you. Thanks for coming in as well.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
And so, Nick, tell us a little bit about this project and this concert, right? So the idea is the Spirit Coalescent, which you guys have been working on, and you're going to be performing it on Sunday, August 8th at 2 p.m. at the Farmington Civic Center. But this started 6 years ago?
Yeah, it's been a heck of a journey to get here. Delbert Anderson and I have worked on several projects throughout the years. We have, our jazz band, our hip hop band with James now, and one thing we always wanted to do is be very inclusive in the arts and the artists that we work with. So we kind of had a brainstorm of what's the best way to combine all of these things years ago. So we thought, let's find artists that do visual mediums, let's find poets, let's find dancers, and let's find a way to put this all together that makes sense and is cohesive and is a show that people can enjoy. And originally we had a pretty big scope, and we tried to shoot internationally, and we had artists, and we had money, and we had all these different supplies going literally all over the world. And it's kind of like herding cats. It's hard enough to get 4 or 5 people locally to get together and to put together a project, but we had folks in the Amazon, we had folks, in literally all parts of the world that were heavily focused on indigenous artists, and there's some horror stories on us of trying to ship in canvases and art supplies and getting stopped at the border because no one believed that we were, shipping art supplies and stuff down into like Colombia and these kind of places. So
wow.
Yeah. So we in the process of all that, that's actually how we met one of our band managers, Andre Bouchard, who introduced us to James, and kind of led us down the path that we are now. So once we kind of dialed back the scope of it as far as geography, we found there's so much local talent that we had always just sort of overlooked, and I think that's kind of a common theme in the Farmington areas. We tend to skip our own arts culture centers and the artists in the area. So in building stuff like the San Juan Jazz Society, we've met people like Patrick Hazen and Karen Ellsbury, who are just wonderfully talented at what they do. So once we started to reevaluate how to do this project, we started with Patrick and Karen, and what they've done is they've created these amazing multimedia pieces. Patrick is a photographer. Karen is a painter, and they put together these 8-foot by 4-foot fusion paintings that inspired us to reach out to James and to Maura Garcia. Maybe James could talk a little bit about what they want to do in the project.
Right.
Yeah, the project was brought to me maybe like a year and a half ago. I'm from Washington State originally, and by way of Tulsa, Oklahoma right now. But since joining the band just like 2 months ago, I'll be moving here to Farmington. So I'm excited to come and take part and build community right here in the heart of Farmington, especially with a project that I feel is like really near and dear to my heart. I'm come from native peoples from up in the Northwest, so that connection to Creator and Mother Earth is very prominent in my life. So when they brought this project to me and asked me to write spoken word poetry about Mother Earth and getting to see these multimedia pieces, at first I just got to see them through a picture and start writing. I didn't have the pieces right here. I've never been to Farmington until this February of this last year, and how it originally came about was hearing their music from the trio, getting to see the painting, and then getting to watch and see video of Maura Garcia dancing, interacting with maybe movement that is of the features of maybe the land. If there's rock and there's jagged edges, there's more jagged movements. If there's swaying meadows, there may be more of a wind essence in her movement. So watching that and trying to put all of these pieces into words, into a cohesive story has been, one of the most fulfilling moments I've had as an artist. So I'm really excited about being able to tell a cohesive story, and we've got 8 different pieces, 8 different soundscapes, and being able to weave the whole thing into a story from front to end. These aren't mutually exclusive pieces. We're very much weaving a cohesive story through the whole thing of a path of healing. So it's been a challenge, but one I was really open for, and storytelling is at the heart of everything I do. So I'm really excited about this weekend.
Yeah, and I want to go to, you had mentioned briefly before the show about, sorry, excuse me, gosh, I got the morning phlegm. But you had mentioned the reciprocity that's involved when we're talking about healing, because healing through the land is part of the description, but you were speaking about what we do in that process. So,
well, yeah, you think about even all of our climates changing across wherever we're at in the world. Like just this summer, like Seattle hit 112 degrees or something like horrendous like that, like the highest that we've ever seen. I just spent the last week compiling some of this poetry down in Abiquiu at some serious business artist in residency, and they were telling us it's the most rain they've seen in those arroyos in 20 years. So we're seeing all of this climate change in all these different parts that we come from, and I feel like we as human beings have a role, have a responsibility in bringing things back into alignment. I feel like Mother Earth is, ever changing, and yes, the land itself can heal us. A lot of medicines come from the land. Like as Native peoples, we believe our languages come from the land. So in and of itself, language is healing. So what is our role to take part in that healing. So many people in spirituality go, okay, I'm going to pray to this external force, and then I'm going to let that external force like take all the responsibility and just go about my life, go about my walk, go about my path without any thought of taking an active role in that healing. Yes, I'm also going to pray to external forces, but what's my role in that as well? Let me take those active roles myself. Let me humble myself. Let me be willing to take those steps, and then listen. So
Very good. And so with this whole concept, right, because this is something maybe different that a lot of folks maybe haven't experienced before, when you combine music and poetry and artwork, photography and painting and dance as well. So all this is happening on the stage at the same time in different sections.
Sure.
How do you have it
So
planned?
So the paintings themselves are huge, and the paintings are going to be the backdrop of everything we do. Luckily, the Civic Center has some great facilities, and we're able to suspend the paintings above us. There's going to be 4 on for the first half, and then we're going to have an intermission and 4 on for the second half. So during each piece, we're going to focus on one of the paintings that'll have poetry that's associated with it. While James is reading his poetry, we'll have music goes underneath it, and then we'll have Maura doing her dance at the same time. So it's really, you're getting hit from all angles.
It is a full sensory experience, it sounds like to me.
Total sensory experience.
Right.
So it's a lot different. And from the musical standpoint, it's different too, because, you know, we're not the focus, and we're used to being, you know, the focus of everything. So we're really more almost live scoring what James is talking about, and the visuals that Patrick and Karen have created, and the visuals that Maura are creating. So at any given time, you can focus on whatever really inspires you, whatever you lock into in the performance.
Very good.
Yeah, and I'd like to dig a little deeper, because I feel like, you know, for folks that are not in the creative arts, that type of like analytical thought processing, like here's an image and we're going to speak to it and compose to it. What is that like when you first received that image? I mean, this took 6 years for a reason, I'm sure. So speak a bit about that, and you guys can both speak. We'll start with you, Nick, and then we'll go to you, James.
You know, I think that the first thing is that we were just fortunate enough to have, there's so much synergy in the images and the art that Patrick and Karen put together that, you know, when you look at them, there's almost obviously a story within their artwork. And a lot of it comes because they took these photos on travels. And there's this beautiful symmetry with everything they're doing, as far as, you know, nature and the different types of nature and the different landscapes and weather and all these things. And it's almost an obvious story that appears just visually. And then when it comes to actually doing the music and the dance and the poetry, as a musician, you know, you're always looking for sources of inspiration. And when there's so much wonderful things happening, whether it's James's words or whether it's Maura's movement or whether there's literal movement in the paintings, it's easy to pick up on one or two things and then just kind of give yourself a framework. The hardest thing I would think for all of us has been none of us want to come in with a full concept of anything, because it is the nature of it is for us to coalesce into something. So the trickiest part was to not come in with like hey, this is a full song, you guys just dance to this song kind of a thing. You know, we wanted to come up with framework, we wanted to come up with like concepts and themes, musical concepts and themes, for everyone to be able to build on. So that's really the great thing about the residency, is now that we're all in the same room, the paintings are hanging above us with lights, and now that we're in the full sound system, we can all come together and coalesce and to form these pieces that I think are much bigger than the individual parts.
Yeah, I think at first, you know, how we had approached the project from the first piece a year and a half ago was we were all in different spaces, you know, so we did it all virtually. So we had, you know, thank God for Zoom, and we were able to connect in that way, at least a little bit of energy passing forth between each other. But it was like they presented us with a song, Maura did the dance and whatnot, and then I put words and a message to all of that together. And when we got here in this residency to really put everything together, it was kind of flipped. They were like, okay, let's score your words. So let's figure out a message together, which I feel like was the most important part of the process for me, was all of us getting together as a team, looking over each painting and go, okay, what does this painting like speak to in each of us? Karen, Patrick, what did you see and feel when you were in that space? How did you approach taking that picture from this angle? What is the history of this space, if you knew of the land itself? Some of them are ruins, so I want to know about those people. And so we started doing research in that way. And then all of us feeding off of each other was like, oh, okay, well, you see that? Well, this is what I see. And writing all of this down. So it didn't matter what, if it was different or not, they're giving me valuable information to be able to put into poetry, whether it's keywords, whether it's feelings, whether it's emotions. These are things that I can build off of, right? So then this is the first time, like, as a hip-hop vocalist, it's usually I have a beat that I work to, and I write to it, so I'm kind of last in the process, and then go record, and then it turns into a song. Whereas this was writing my poetry and then getting to hear the score that they put to it, and then coming back to me. The first piece was amazing. Like, I wrote it all. I didn't have rhythm in it. Like, there's rhythm in my writing, in my voice, in my writing voice. But like, for the first portion of it, they're allowing me just to be spoken word. And they go, you see these lines right down here in the middle? They've got this like triplet kind of rhythm, and I didn't write them in that way, but after I saw it from their eyes, it was really cool to be able to give me the freedom to speak freely, and then all of us come together in the middle, hit the same rhythm together, and then they go back into their song, and then I go back into that free-flowing poetry. So it was like, whoa, getting to see that come alive in the moment was really empowering for me. And then getting to see, like, Maura asking me questions on each piece. She goes, okay, let's read me your poetry, give me your action words, because those action words are going to be direct my movement. So it's like all of us working together to create like this scope of work, and it's been a very empowering process.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Is it more fun to collaborate than work like solo? I mean, this sounds like a lot of hard work, but it sounds just like there's got to be a ton of intuition and we're just vibing off of each other, and that sounds amazing.
Yeah, that's I think that's one of the biggest draws to this kind of project. Now, it's not easy all the time, just because there's so many people involved. But specifically when you have a group of people that you trust, and like, Karen and Patrick are like family to us. We rent a space from them. James, we appreciated enough when we met him to bring him into our full-time band and stuff. So it's really building a family, and it's that sense of family and love that really makes something like this particular project really bloom and become its own thing above and beyond our individual voices.
Yeah, and I feel the same as you. It's collaboration. It's got that, like, double-edged sword. If you don't mix with the team or the collective that you're collaborating with, it can be so stressful. If there's some that are very professional and some that are not, and those practicing patterns are different, then it can create some conflict. But I give all hats off to Delbert, Nick, Mike. They're very careful with who they choose to collaborate with. They've been at this for a long time. Same with my partner, Maura, the dancer and choreographer. Has like Delbert and her are both 2019 Native Launchpad winners together, so they were in the same cohort. So there's a lot of synergy here. And then, like they said, they're renting that space from Karen and Patrick, so it's not really going outside very far of a circle of people that we've got all this cross-pollination with. And then when I came here in February to visit with the band for the first time, I got to meet Karen and Patrick, and now that I've been back here for about 2 months now, like, he's right, they're like family. I call them aunt and uncle now. So it's, it really has become a familial experience between all of us. We're very connected. So collaboration is at the heart of everything I do. And in every piece that I built, I've really, really focused on that collaboration, really trying to grow the energy of collaboration. So to be in a collective where they feel that same way, lifts this project up into a whole new stratosphere. So it's amazing.
It's very exciting, and we just have a couple of minutes remaining this morning, everybody. But Nick, I wanted to turn back to you a little bit about this process, because this is kind of part of a bigger, I think, concept for the Civic Center, for the city of Farmington, and supporting the arts, and for your organization and the others who are involved with this, because you're having this show on Sunday, which we've told folks about. But the idea is maybe to take the show on the road, so to speak, and to maybe have it tour around and to present it to other performing arts spaces and see if they would pick it up and things like that, right? That's also part of what Sunday's performance is about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The city, over the past couple of years, we've started things like the San Juan Jazz Society, and there seems to be this big kind of renaissance in the Farmington community as far as the arts. So we've had a lot of support from people like the mayor and like Randy West over at the Civic Center that have been fantastic about listening to the stuff, the ideas that we have, and really fostering these projects. And I know the Civic Center and Randy West in particular really wanted to develop and foster a homegrown project, something that we can be proud of, that we send off into the world. And the vision with this is we'll be partnering with performing arts centers and art galleries. So the pieces will go out, they'll display it in an art gallery for the weeks beforehand, and then we'll come in together. We'll do workshops on writing, on dance with local schools and community centers, and then we'll do an evening of engagement. So that's the vision, is for Farmington to really create this and let it blossom and travel the country and hopefully the world.
Very good. Well, thank you guys for coming in this morning.
Yeah, and the Spirit Coalescent this Sunday, 2 p.m. at the Civic Center. How do we get tickets?
You can go to the website and get tickets. I think it's $15 for adults, $12 for students and seniors, or you can go to the box office that day.
There you go. fmtn.org/shows is the website for Civic Center Productions, so I think they can probably hook you up. So thank you both for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
We appreciate it very much. Nick Lucero, great to see you.
Thanks, Scott.
James Pacotis, thank you for coming in.
Appreciate you very
And
much.
welcome to Farmington.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Before we go today, everybody, we did want to do an update. Again, we knew Megan and I did our COVID show for many weeks.
It's like 67 weeks or something.
Yeah, I don't
like
remember,
that.
but
It's
it was
crazy.
it was many. It was a lot. It was a lot. And so, anyway, I had an opportunity to talk to Dr. Underwood from the hospital just a couple of yesterday, actually, as a matter of fact. So we wanted to bring you an update on the hospitals. We're hearing news of increased cases and the Delta variant and those things. So we leave you with an update from San Juan Regional Medical Center this morning before we go from KSJE. We have been seeing increases in the numbers of COVID-19 cases in New Mexico and, of course, right here in San Juan County. So we asked Dr. Bob Underwood to join us from San Juan Regional Medical Center to give us kind of an update on how things are looking over at the hospital. Dr. Underwood joins me on the phone this morning. Good morning, Dr. Bob Underwood. Good to have you back with us.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. Good to be on.
You bet. Appreciate that. And so, as I mentioned, we're seeing increases in COVID cases, and of course, it's not just in New Mexico; it's nationwide and worldwide, I would say. But we wanted to check with you to see just how things are looking at the hospital. And from what you were telling me before we came on the air this morning, it's still manageable in the numbers, at least for now.
That's correct. Currently, we have 11 COVID-positive patients in the hospital. 2 of those are in the ICU, which is significantly lower than what we saw in our greatest of surges, but we are seeing that number starting to trend upward.
Got it. And we're hearing a lot, Dr. Underwood, from other media sources about the majority of hospitalized COVID patients tend to be those that have not been vaccinated. I don't know if your data would tell you that, or if that's something you could share with our audiences, if that is true or not at San Juan Regional.
That is absolutely true. The number of patients that we're seeing, have we had a couple of patients that have come through that have been fully vaccinated? Yes, we have. But that is such an incredibly rare occurrence that the patients that we see, the vast majority of them are those who are unvaccinated.
And they're showing up sicker than the other patients too? Can you make that generalization, or what would you say?
I would say that we have had so few unvaccinated patients actually come into the hospital, it would be hard to say that this is a statistical anomaly, or is this just common variation. But nationally, what we are seeing is that the people who are vaccinated, they have a very rare chance that they're going to get infected. No vaccination is perfect, so there's a risk that they will get an infection, again, on a rare occurrence. And the other data is showing that statistically, they are less likely to get extremely ill if they do become infected.
Understood. And the other thing we're hearing a lot about, of course, are the variants, and the Delta variant is what's in the news these days. You were telling me that we do have evidence of the Delta variant in San Juan County, and it seems like we have a lot of other variants too, but we're expecting to get more cases of the Delta variant of COVID-19. Is that what you're bracing for?
That is what we're preparing for, just because of how quickly it transmits from person to person. It's becoming very common, especially in those populations, Florida, that you're hearing where there's a lot of cases happening. We would anticipate that that is going to come here just like it is everywhere else. Our most recent data doesn't show that to be necessarily the dominant variant yet, but we do anticipate we're going to start seeing it.
And so we're seeing a lot more recommendations to mask up, even for the vaccinated folks and the unvaccinated folks, just because of the spread of the Delta variant, and it could because it does spread so, I guess, easily and quickly. And so will we be seeing any policy changes at the hospital if we haven't already?
So we've never lifted our masking mandate at the hospital. That won't change here. But in our community, I think we're already starting to hear and see recommendations and even statements coming out of the governor's office about requirements. And so it is going to continue in that way. You know, certainly the masking is important. I think it really proved out to be really important last year. We don't know what COVID would have looked like without the masking mandate, but we do know what other respiratory infections were almost non-existent last year because of the masking. So we do believe that masking is one of the really good things that we can do. Like I said, even if you've been vaccinated, there's still a risk that you could be infected, and this helps prevent that. Also remember that your mask is really more about protecting people around you than it is about protecting you. It's about your exhalation, and as we just said, if you've been vaccinated, you're less likely to have significant symptoms or become significantly ill. The point of that being is that is the potential occurrence that you could be infected, not even know it because you've been vaccinated and your symptoms are significantly reduced, but you're still passing on the virus to other people.
Right, and that is something that's, I guess, is relatively maybe a new discovery. I think it was maybe 4th of July in Massachusetts that the scientists and medical folks were kind of surprised that there was so much spread among vaccinated population.
Yeah, the most recent study I also read was out of a hospital system in San Francisco, and they found the same thing. A number of their employees, now they have 35,000 employees at their system, so it's a bigger number, and so statistically maybe more reliable data. But they checked a bunch of their employees, some of whom were completely asymptomatic, and they did end up being positive and were shedding the virus to other people. So it's, again, 35,000 employees. They're 20 times the size of our facility.
Right. Very true. Let me ask you a bit. We're seeing, of course, the state has just unveiled incentives yet again for folks to get the vaccine if they haven't already. $100 checks going out between now and I think the end of the month. I think your message has never wavered of the importance to be vaccinated. Now folks 12 and over can get the vaccine. It's readily available throughout locations in San Juan County, from the hospital to physicians to drugstores and things along that line. Still, the advice is if you haven't been vaccinated and your doctor feels that you should be vaccinated and you've got all your questions answered, the advice is to get the shot, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. In the end, the best protection for an individual, the best protection for our community, and the best protection for our entire population is to get as many people vaccinated as possible. It's a protection for yourself, but it's also the only way we're going to stop the next surge or further spread of the pandemic is if we hit critical mass in the number of people that have been vaccinated.
Right. And Dr. Underwood, I'm sure you can understand a lot of folks are maybe tired about hearing the word COVID. I bet you are, maybe your staff is too, and some other things as we see these cases going up, the numbers going up, and things along that line. I always want to ask about the staff at San Juan Regional Medical Center who have been there day in and day out these last, where are we now, 16 months, 18 months, dealing with the ups and the downs. How is your staff doing at the hospital? So,
yes, we're prepared, always. Prepared, not panic. We've been saying that since the beginning of the very first start of the pandemic. But I would say yes, there is a weariness and a bracing ourselves for the next possible impact. But I will say that there's also some frustration because we now look at COVID as we talked about before, the vast majority of the people that are being hospitalized are unvaccinated. So we really look at COVID as a preventable disease, as preventable impact on hospitals, on the healthcare system, on our population, on individuals. It's preventable just by getting the vaccine.
Right. And so we hope that maybe some of those surges are preventable as well, right? If enough of us have the vaccine, we won't see those big spikes like we saw earlier or in the year. At least we all hope so. And you mentioned, of course, the masks and the masking mandates that are coming back. A lot of stores are requiring them again.
Yes.
And you mentioned too that they were very helpful in helping to keep some other infections down last year. As I recall, they really didn't have much of a flu season, and that's almost unprecedented, isn't it? I mean, that was kind of
completely.
A positive thing to come out of all this, that they really didn't have a lot of flu cases.
No, that's absolutely true. I've been in healthcare for 23, 25 years, something like that. I've never seen anything like that where there just wasn't any. A case here, a case there across the state, but otherwise it was virtually zero. So really kind of an amazing thing. What our concern is if there is another surge, we do feel that there's a lot of vaccine out there. We are not going to see a surge like we saw last time. However, if there is a relaxation and people don't mask up again, we will see a surge of COVID, maybe not as bad. But all of the other respiratory diseases that we didn't see last year will come into the hospital and be compounded on top of those. So we will see COVID kind of rise up again, but we're probably also going to go back and see the pneumonias and the influenzas and the respiratory syncytial viruses that we just didn't see last year. So that still gives us pause. It's not that it's necessarily COVID alone, but it's COVID in combination with the other seasonal infections that just didn't impact us last year.
Understood. Well, Dr. Bob Underwood, Chief Medical Officer, San Juan Regional Medical Center, thank you so much for joining me this morning with this update. We appreciate it very, very much.
Yes, sir. Always appreciate the ability to get the message out to our public. So thank you very much, Scott.
Dr. Underwood from San Juan Regional Medical Center. We always appreciate hearing from him. So,
helpful. His updates are always so helpful.
Right. So, we were hoping maybe you wouldn't have to talk about COVID anymore, but here we are, and we will continue
after
to.
After our second episode of the new show.
Yes, but we feel it wasn't important to get an update, so here you go. But anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Again, our second week of Solutions from the Street.
That's right. So we'll see you next time.
From the Street. Bye-bye.